Okay, fellas, so in this video, I'm gonna break down exactly what it takes to lose 5 to 15 pounds of not weight, but actual fat. That way you keep your muscle, you lose the fat, and you keep your strength over the next 10 weeks. I'm not talking about doing starvation. I'm not talking about doing 2 days. I'm talking about getting extremely strategic on your approach and talking about how to keep your muscle, how to stay in a low intensity state so you're not pulling into carbohydrates, and how to precisely use fat as your primary source of fuel to totally change the way your body looks. So by the end of this video, you're gonna exactly know how many calories you need to be having, what you need to do as far as adjustments on a weekly basis, if what's working and what's not working. I'm gonna give you some clear takeaways on that and how to make the adjustments. I'm gonna teach you how to train the right way so that you can continue to build muscle and not have the bodybuilding mentality, but also recognize to put your best foot forward what you need to be doing. We're gonna talk about the importance of LISS training, low intensity, steady state training. This is gonna be crucial for fat loss and also helping you aid in recovery. And it's really gonna come down to the data and come down to our sheet so that every single week, when we look over at our chart, for those of you that are in the program, what the data is telling us, so that each week, if we get an X, we know that we need to make an adjustment, or if we get a Y, we know that we need to make an adjustment here. So we're gonna dive deep into the weeds of that. I've given you the PDF simple action chart. This is gonna give you the detailed overview of why, common mistakes, how to overcome it, what to do when you get stuck, what to do when things aren't working, so we can actually break through it. And of course, coaching calls and getting on and asking questions and ultimately accountability so it can help hold you to it to help you get the results. Now, I will go ahead and tell you, this is for those of you that really are looking to lock in. Now, you know I'm a big believer in taking small, actionable steps to lead into positive habits over time. But if you have been in the program for a while and you have developed healthy habits and you want a recipe that says, if I do X, Y, and Z, it is going to lead to this fat loss, then this is for you, because this is a little bit more rigid. We have to be extremely calculated. And if you do this and we make these adjustments week by week, it works every single time. But it's going to require a ton of discipline. It's going to require 100% consistency and compliance, because without true consistency and without good follow through, the data is going to get skewed. And that is the number one thing. Without being consistent, we are not gonna have the right data inputs. So that's gonna be the thing. If you're ready to lock in and you've got summer coming up, or you just wanna freaking see what your body's capable of, this is not a long-term solution is what I'm saying. It's a 10-week freaking gung-ho focused, I want this as the outcome. Now, what most people typically try to do when they're doing something like this is they're trying to do something like 75-day hard, where it's like, all right, I'm doing 2 days, I'm gonna do 2 workouts a day, I'm gonna do super high intensity training, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna blah, 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 blah. You know, trying to cut your calories way too fast, but this is completely different. We are gonna do it the scientific approach way, which works every single time. We have to focus on preserving muscle tissue. So we're going to teach you how to preserve your muscle. We're going to teach you how to actually lose fat for fat loss, not just weight loss. There will be some that comes with that as well. And I'll say it over and over again, the data will tell us what's going on, so it makes it impossible to fail. Now, the first thing that you have to actually know going into this process is you have to know your numbers. Every single week, we are looking at 0.05 to 2 pounds of weight loss is what we're looking at. So somewhere in between there is what we need to have, or we need to make some adjustments. We need to increase your activity, or we need to subtly decrease your calories. And we'll talk about the benefits or the pros and the cons between the two of them. When it comes to what your baseline is, now the data is going to tell us over time, but for starters, to get us at least in a roundabout way to get us an idea without going and having a DEXA scan done, or excuse me, a resting metabolic rate done, we can get you in the right ballpark. So for example, if we take your body weight and we times it by 11, this will give you a general idea of what your metabolic rate is. Now, if you aren't very active, you are sitting a lot, you're sedentary, we're gonna use this times 10. Or if you're extremely active, we'll go times 12. Now, here's the deal. We're gonna talk about this in greater detail later, but let's say we get into the program and week goes by you were at, let's just pretend for simple math, let's call this a 200-pound man, and we're timing by 10, so that's 2,000 calories. Well, let's pretend we put you into a deficit of 2,000, and you stayed at 1750 the entire time. So all through, and I'm talking about every day, throughout the week, there was an average of 7 times 250 throughout the week. Whatever the math is on that. Let's just pretend it was 1,500 deficit. So you were in a deficit the entire time. If you did not lose a half a pound to 2 pounds, 2 things have to happen. And I'll tell you what I would do first is we have to increase your activity, number 1. And I always like increasing activity first because you're gonna have better energy, you're gonna feel better, you're gonna get stronger, all the things and the benefits that come with exercising. Or you have to decrease your calories even more. So if we were at 1,750, we have to take this to call it maybe 1,600. Now, the problem that most people do is they don't focus on the activity and they just focus on cutting your calories. And when you cut, you end up eating so little calories, you turn into where you're starving and you're dealing with a willpower issue. And we're gonna talk about that in greater detail here in a minute of how to overcome that. But those are the 2 things you need to have in your mind is I'm gonna increase my activity or I'm gonna decrease my calories if the numbers aren't working. And how do we know if the numbers aren't working? Is if you are consistently tracking so we have specific data. Consistency number 1, data number 2, small, simple changes. So you have an idea of what you should be losing per week. We have an idea of what your estimated metabolic rate would be. Now we need to talk about if we're trying to preserve muscle tissue by building muscle and losing fat, you need to take this a lot more serious than you are. Most of you are not anywhere close to what your protein target should be. If we're gonna train hard, we need to preserve our muscle tissue, and we do that by having protein. So I need you at a minimum to be getting 0.08 grams per pound of body weight. So if you're 200 pounds, then we need to get you to at least 160. Now, probably closer to 1 gram if you are a little bit more active. But if you're not as active, we could live somewhere between maybe 180 for trying to lose weight as well, if you're a little bit heavier. Now, just for the simple purpose of math again, let's say that we had 2,000 calories as our baseline, and then we had to get 200 grams protein to keep our math simple. This is gonna equal X amount calories that's chipping away here. I want the rest of your calories coming about 30-ish to 40% from carbs and from fat. Now, we're gonna talk about this in greater detail, but if you totally try to wipe out your carbohydrates, you're gonna have no energy to push when it comes to your strength training and to building your muscle. We're gonna talk about this here in just a second. I know I keep saying that, but because I wanna be able to dive into each section, but if that becomes a problem, we put the carbs around your workout window so that you have the energy to work out. So if you're worried about carbohydrates, put them around your workout, put them at the front of the workout, have them during your workout, have them after your workout, so that your workouts and your training doesn't suffer. So what we're gonna talk about next is how can you consistently hit those numbers? Because if you're trying to eat this, that, this, that, this, that, this, that, and the other, it's gonna make it hard to have consistent progress of hitting your actual caloric goal. So unfortunately, you need to come up with a few different meals that, let's just call them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different meals. Again, this isn't a sustainable approach, but if you want to lock in, this is what it takes. So we come up with several different meals, and then we have these guys, and we just know how to pull on the lever. So we say, well, just for simple math, let's say we had 12 ounces of protein. Well, if we're not losing weight and we need to whatever, maybe we swap out the protein for something that's a little bit leaner, like a beef compared to a chicken, or an eggs compared to a turkey. Like there's different fat contents in that. But an easy way to do, let's say we had 12 ounces of protein, we had 8 ounces carbs. Well, if we're trying to reduce the calories and we're being pretty meticulous here, we take this to 10 ounces, we take this to 6 ounces, and that's a simple way to say, hey, these are the meals that I'm having. Now I just need to tweak or adjust how much nutrients and how many grams I'm having of that meal. Because when the meals are predictable, so are the results. So the way that I would do it is I'd have 2 to 3 different breakfasts, I'd have 2 to 3 different choices for lunches, and I'd have 2 to 3 different choices for dinner. And quite honestly, if that sounds a little bit overwhelming or complex, it doesn't need to, but you need to understand that this is what it's going to take if you want to lock in and have a predictable outcome. So you might just consider having some type of local meal prep service to where they just give you a meal for you, bing, bada boom. You know, and we're going to be using, you could, quite honestly, you could use whatever you want, but we're going to need to use something like, you know, Macro Factor, which I've given you access to, or you could use, you know, MyFitnessPal or whatever, but we have to know grams. We have to know specifics. We have to know that if we're putting in, we need to know the total at the end of the day is, we got to be very particular on the data. Now, when it comes to your strength training, if we are going to preserve muscle, I've talked about this extensively, but if you train at a high intensity, which I do love to train high intensity, and what I mean by that is high heart rate of plus zone 3-ish. Your primary source of energy is going to come from carbohydrates, and it's also going to lead you to be more hungry. It's going to lead you to be when you're in a deficit, when you're in 150 to 250 or 300 calorie deficit, and you go hit this high intensity training, you're gonna wanna refeed your body. You're gonna wanna have a little bit more. So if you go high intensity, you're gonna run into some problems here where you might get hangry and it makes it challenging. So we have to change the style of training. I'm not talking about changing the intensity of training. What I'm saying is the intensity of the heart. So we would actually specifically need to focus on purely muscle, purely hypertrophy, purely time under tension and mad intensity. And lucky for you, all you have to do is follow along in the program called Pump City. Pump City is designed for body recomposition, for building muscle, all of these things, because it's got time under tension, TUT. It's going to take you through every week. It's going to start off here, and every week throughout the 6-week training block is going to slowly progress in volume, in reps, in sets, in intensity, so that, and that's what's actually needed to create physical adaptation. So anyway, what I'm saying is the training style has to focus on muscle building as opposed to trying to pump out high intensity with the old ticker. High intensity with your muscle just looks like massive, epic, challenging sets and reps. And just like with the hit on the cardio side, when you combine strength and conditioning, which I do love, when you combine your cardio, so that's our muscle work, right? The Pump City. When we combine our cardio for our heart health, here you follow Pump City. Over here, we still need to be very careful. We cannot do high intensity work for our cardio. What we actually need to do is called LISS. Low intensity steady state training, and low intensity is more specifically somewhere around 180 minus your age. So that will get you into a zone 2, which is a high enough intensity to where you're not burning carbohydrates as your primary source of fuel. I shouldn't say burning, using. And here you're utilizing fat as fuel. So if you're 40 years old, 180 minus 40 will be 140. Plus or minus 5 to 10. So you would be somewhere between 135 and 145 beats per minute. And that is what we're looking at for your cardio. So let me tell you how you can actually accomplish that. Because steps in walking is your secret weapon. So let's say we're walking, right? If we're walking flat outside, number one, awareness is going to be your first thing, actually seeing what heart rate you're at. Maybe you're walking and you realize, oh wow, I'm walking, but I'm only at 100 beats per minute. Well, you can walk, next would be to walk faster. And by increasing your effort, increasing your intensity, maybe you got to 110 beats per minute. Well, you can only walk so fast before you run, and I really prefer people to start running up here, and there's other things that we could do. So we could walk faster, but we could also walk on an incline. Having an incline raised up increases the intensity, increases the demand on the legs. So maybe adding an incline gets you to 120. Well, we're still not at that 135 rate if you're 40 years old. So we went incline, we went faster. Now we need to add some type of external load. So you can do a weighted vest, you can do a rucksack. So now if we're walking faster, we're walking on an incline and we're doing an external load, that will probably get you into your target zone 2 heart rate. Now, if you're not there yet, and you're still not in your heart rate, yeah, what we're gonna need to do is actually start running, because we're gonna have to increase the intensity. Now, the good thing about doing all this is this allows you to have low impact work, strengthening your joints before you have to run. So if you have to run in order to get to your zone 2, let's have a conversation, because I have a return to run protocol that will safely get you there. That way you don't get busted up shins and shin splints and all that stuff. But simply put, we have to step more. So we need to be averaging, I mean, we're talking 10 to 15K steps per day. Again, for some of you guys, this is a lot. This is a lot of information, but this is what it takes to have a predictable outcome. Strength training, the very specific targeted lists for your conditioning. So now what I want to talk about is the specific adjustments that are taking place if you're not moving in the right direction. Because nobody wants to keep doing something if it's not working. Now we need to give this about a 2-week time frame, with high level of tracking, high level of consistency. And here's the deal. If your weight has not dropped, you have 2 choices. We can increase your step count by 1K, or you're going to need to decrease your calories by probably about 150 to 200-ish. So somewhere around here, and you have a choice. Increase your activity, which is gonna burn maybe about that much, or you can decrease your calories. And the good thing about as you get fitter and as you get stronger, your step count, which may seem daunting at first, well, as you get in better shape and you actually start running, you can bang out these steps a lot faster because you're fitter. Now, here's the deal about preserving the muscle tissue, right? So if you notice that your strength is starting to slip and you notice that your lifts are going down, because if you're in a deficit, when you're doing the same weights, we don't want to back off from the weights. We still have to train really, really hard. We still have to challenge ourselves. But if your strength is starting to dip, we're going to need to do the opposite. We're going to need to 150 calorie plus on your calories. So not only strength, but if you lost greater than 2 pounds per week, because we don't really want that. We want to keep it within, remember, 0.05 to 2. So if you lost +2, we actually need to increase your calories. So if your strength is dropping, or if you're losing more than 2 pounds a week, we actually want to bump up your calories a little bit. And actually have those be primarily from carbohydrates. That way you have the energy to perform in your strength workouts. And around your workouts, we talked about that. If you feel like you are starving, if you feel like you are hangry, if you feel like that is becoming a willpower thing and you're just trying to hold on for dear life, I want you to have your workout window. I want you to center your carbohydrates pre, post, and after, and make sure you're getting enough vegetables so you actually get the volume. But have your carbohydrates around your workout, 1, to give you the energy, and then 2, afterwards, so you can replenish your glycogen so you can absorb the protein better, so you can have better workouts, not be feeling like you're about to pass out, and deal with the hunger. So let's talk about recapping what success should look like. Number 1, 0.05 to 2 pounds per week is our target. Numero 2, you need to have 0.05 to 1.5 inches of your waist should be dropping per month. Your strength, your muscle, and the way that you're lifting the weights stays the same. And every single day, you're able to hit somewhere probably between 8 and 14K steps. This is, if we've stripped it all away, this is your success map and what needs to be happening. Now, what most people do wrong whenever they're trying to actually lose fat is they try to do too much cardio, too high intensity, and they're just thinking cardio, cardio, and cardio. So you end up doing so much cardio, you start skipping your strength work. And when you start skipping your strength work, or when you do your strength work, you're not training really hard sets. You still have to bring the intensity. Another thing that people struggle with a lot is they, unfortunately, don't stick to the different or the same meals. I get it, but if you want to make it easy, you need to have a couple of repeat meals for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner, so you can easily tweak the calories up and down just by changing the amount of grams that you're having. Because you have to remember that nutrition is going to fuel or be the primary source and the mover for fat loss, and your training is going to be the primary mover and retainer for your muscle. And the steps is going to keep your fat loss and your recovery good, and accountability to your tracker showing up on the coaching calls for when you have questions. The data is going to tell us, because what gets measured gets managed. And I could tell you story after story, like a client, Ben, who was slowly dropping his calories to where they got so low. And then we made some adjustments because he was fighting willpower, he was fighting hunger, he was fighting all these different things. Well, when you're meticulous and you're tracking, we actually increased his calories, which allowed him to have more food, have better workouts, and then it blew his mind, but he actually broke through and started to lose weight, or lose more weight. So he ate more, but continued to lose because we increased that activity. A few weeks later, we started to address because he was getting stalled out again. He wasn't getting stalled out, but he needed to find the next breakthrough. So what we did, instead of increasing his calories again, and instead of increasing our activity again, because there's only so much you can do, I told him, I said, what's going on with your stress and what's going on with your sleep? I had him go through some of the material on stress and sleep and take away some points that he could improve in his life. He had his biggest breakthrough of the year we've been working together, and he lost 4 pounds the upcoming week when he was actually less active because he tweaked his back. So 4 pounds is very aggressive, but it was whenever he was doing less because we focused on stress and sleep. All this stuff goes hand in hand, guys. So a couple of questions that I know you boys are going to be asking is, do you need to weigh your food? And the short answer is yes. Now, this is only a 10-week process. You're going to get the hang of it very quickly. But if you want to have a predictable outcome, we need to have predictable results, and we need to actually know what is going on and putting it. So you can use the Macro Factor app, and it's going to give you really, really good outline. But yeah, you're going to have to put that puppy on the scale, and you're going to get a good ballpark. It's not that complicated. It's just a new skill that you have to develop. Another question that I'm going to get a lot of is, can you swap your foods? You can swap your foods. It makes it a lot easier to have the same thing, but it's all going to come down to your total macros. It's going to come down to your protein. It's going to come down to your calories. If I can break it down to as simple as possible, these are the two metrics that we're going to have to get super lasered in on. We're going to want to be in a deficit or increase by 150 or decrease by 150. The protein needs to stay consistent somewhere between 0.8 and 1 gram. I think I said 0.08 earlier. I meant 0.8. And if you are someone that goes throughout your day and you are starving at night, I want you to front load all of that protein at the beginning of the day. Prioritize more veggies, prioritize fiber, because these things will keep you full for longer, and have complex carbs and things that will keep you full so that come nighttime you're not starving, because you don't want to turn this into a willpower thing. It's okay to have a targeted goal and be focused and be challenged, but you don't want to do this. You don't want to be doing bing, 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 X over the weekend, bing, 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 X over the weekend. Because if you miss every weekend or you're not consistent, do the math on that. Do the weekend times 52, that's over 100 days of missed consistency. Over a year. Now, this is a 10-week block, so I get it. Now, the thing that I want to encourage you, for those of you that are taking on this 10-week challenge, after the 10-week challenge, don't fall off and don't blow up like a balloon. Let me clearly lay out the next steps for you. I want you to intentionally increase your calories by 200 to 300 calories, and primarily from carbohydrates. I want you to keep that the same for the next 2 weeks. Then what I want you to do is I want you to transition to the Recomp body transformation platform that I've created, or if you want to focus on building muscle, we're going to go the building muscle route. So we focus in for 10 weeks to lose fat, and then you have an opportunity over the next 12 weeks, and then by then you're going to have such a momentum, such a good flow, and you have developed so many skills that you can actually take with you and have a simplified process. But this is the way. And this is why I talk about all the time that you don't need motivation, you just need a system. You need to have that if I do X, Y, and Z, you know that you're going to get the outcome. Now, most people don't get the outcome because they're trying to do it alone, and they don't have any accountability, and they have no way to actually track to make sure what's working, what's not working, and then you're up in the air, then you fall off, and when you're looking at the numbers, it doesn't allow you to hide from them because the numbers don't lie. So this is the structure. This gives you the numbers. This gives you the system to be successful. All you have to do is execute, and when you need support, show up on the calls, let's work through it, and let's help you break through it, because I can tell you that it's not always going to be easy, but when you get to the outcome, it's damn sure rewarding. You got to visualize it. Like, imagine being 10 pounds of fat down. Imagine fitting better into the sport coat, putting on the t-shirt, feeling a little bit better. You have to visualize these things. These have to be your goal and what you're after. Even just think about your kids, like your kids seeing you in this way, like what you've talked about, and now they get to see you living, breathing, and having better energy for them, or whoever it is in your life. This is what happens on the other side of it. So if you're ready to make it your reality, then let's make it happen. If you're not in our program yet and you want to be a part of the team and actually get this accountability tracker and get all the things that I'm talking about, click the link down below. Let's hop on a call. Let's get you plugged in. Otherwise, you boys that are already in the program and you're ready to take on the 10-week challenge, let's lock in. It's going to be a tough challenge in 10 weeks, but if you're ready for it, it's locking in for 2 months, for 2.5 months. See you guys in the next one.